issue. So whenever we get involved with magic, we're dealing with a religious tradition that's extremely old and familiar, but it always very soon takes us back to our very beginnings, to the origins of things, to the kind of first things that we did really. And nowhere I think is that better illustrated than in the subject of dance, surprisingly. Dance in itself and movement is, in a sense, for one, it's, you could say we know about it, but it's also, we take it for granted that is almost, you could say, one of the oldest forms of magic, one way or another. There's always music and movement. There's almost always dance in magic. Dance, if you like, is related. I've talked before about image magic, how magic is very focused on the making, the construction of images, and the enlivening, or the vivification of images in some ways, the bringing of images to life and letting them move. This, in a sense, this is our oldest language, the language of the body. Leon Trotsky, the linguist, the famous linguist, has talked about a thing called the transformational grammar, which is a kind of deep, embedded form of language that kind of almost universal. It's almost in our genes, if you follow his point of view. And image magic, music, dance, if anything is going to be the transformational grammar, that's where you've got to kind of look, I think, is in this sort of basic language of signs. And dance itself then is a form of image magic, of moving images, the making of images one way or another. And some of the pictures I'll show are, if I mention that some of the oldest, usually rock carvings in Egypt, again, is not a subject that kind of is always featured in books on Egypt, not older books anyway, is the rock carvings. The number of rock carvings from all periods, right from the beginning of time, that exist in Egypt is quite staggering, really. And amongst the very oldest images of from rock art in Egypt, dance poses are often shown, and dances are depicted often with the instruments that people used in these very, very ancient ritual dances. So that's a kind of good source for, if you're trying to reconstruct, as I would be doing, trying to reconstruct the actual dance itself, or versions of the dance, because this is obviously something I quite like to do. Then images from rock art and from inscriptions, so that you haven't really got any moving images, you've got something a bit like it as an attempt to sort of show movement, but it's the best that we can do, and we have some other clues, which I'll talk about in another film, about how you might reconstruct and do some of these dances. Plus, I suppose you think some of it is embedded in our consciousness. So the first pose that is depicted, one of the oldest poses, is sometimes called the diamond pose, because of the position of the arms shown in the picture. Or perhaps more accurately, you might call it the horned pose, that the arms are raised in that very common image of devotion as a kind of way of depicting the horns of a cow or a bull or whatever, which is such an important image of prestige in Egypt, as it is in many other cultures. The ancient neolithic, if you like, cattle cult, extremely important, and the making of that basic sign of the horned god or goddess, the horned animal, is the bread and butter really of early dance. It's an incredibly common pose to see, and one that can be reconstructed. I mean, obviously you just got one posture. It's difficult to reconstruct a whole dance from one posture, but obviously they thought that was the most distinctive part of the dance, and you can kind of get an idea, if you put this together, a bit of music, of the sort of things you can do. And we're kind of invoking, what would we invoke in goddesses like Hathor, who was also shown with the horn pose, or just the bull in itself. Which almost all gods in the Egyptian pantheon have a relationship to the bull one way or another. They have an incarnation as a bull. So you should say that dance poses are related to hieroglyphs, to the sacred writing of Egypt. They are, breaks down into basic pictograms or ancient signs. So in a sense, a dance pose is a hieroglyph. It's speaking to you directly. It's making the language directly to you, and often it spells out specific words. I think I give an example of this later. It might be but it's almost like the word for magic, which is heka. We could almost spell the word for magic in dance without writing, without saying it. Really, maybe we could say it at the same time. But if we have the hands raised in the horn pose, which also as a hieroglyph signifies the ka or soul. Perhaps related way. And some of the images of the dancers that I've seen, they also have a special type of costume. They have straps crisscrossing the body in a particular form, and it's obviously important. And one idea I had, which is not, having looked at other experts' ideas, is that if you put the two together, you're actually, because that looks like the hieroglyph H for he. So you've got the horn symbol and you've got the he symbol, ElKab, magic. Now, if that seems a completely outrageous idea, I could say I didn't make that up completely. The idea. There's another type of dance known from Egypt, which we would call a pair dance, I suppose, where sort of a pair of two dancers connect with each other. So you've got a pair, and they're kind of gripping each other's hands in a certain pattern. Best if I show you the picture. Now, it's not a random pattern, right? The image that they are depicting is strange. They're actually depicting an object, a particular type of necklace, a gold necklace, which is one of the most common sacred artifacts, in fact, in Egypt. So they're kind of dancing the form which is related to Hathor, the golden one. Through the dance, they're kind of making that hieroglyph of the golden one. They're invoking it really directly through their bodies. So this idea is not at all alien to a way of looking at dance. Dance in Egypt is hieroglyphic, really, one way or another. So I'm going to take a little break there, right? Well, I stop the tape and just to be human. It always takes longer to kind of go through these things than I expected, so I'm going to have to break this down into two bits for your sake and for my sake or whatever. So I'll leave you there. That's the idea we got to. So we've got magic and we've got hieroglyphs, these sort of sacred signs that are very, very related to magic, the word, the power of the word, and we've got dance, which brings them to life one way or another. And as it says in the PGM, which is this collection of texts that I kind of mentioned, which is so important, one particular spell that is so important now to the magical movement, the ritual or Ju, the painter of hieroglyphs, the hieroglyphist. There's a particular line in this text that sticks out at you if you're interested in this material. The line where he says, "The sight is in my feet. There you go. The sight is in my feet. So I would suggest to you that one possible interpretation of that is that the vision, the spirit vision that you invoke in the PGM comes via dance.